In today's video, we have a lot of news to cover, including the Toronto Maple Leafs. How will they address their salary cap situation? Will they be buying out a veteran defenseman? Will it lead to a trade? We have some further thoughts on that. Plus, we have updates on the Boston Bruins and how they may move forward without captain and top centerman Patrice Bergeron. Who may they target in a trade to try to continue to be in the Stanley Cup contendership? Plus, we also have other news, including a few signings, rumor on a top prospect maybe joining the Coyotes, and the legal troubles for Alex Galchenyuk are apparently not over, only getting worse. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to cover today. I want to kick things off, though, with the news on Alex Galchenyuk. Unfortunately, it's not good news. The last time we talked about this player, he was having his contract terminated by the Arizona Coyotes, and we learned about the unfortunate situation that led to that. And now his legal troubles continue to only get worse. So we are finding out here now that he's actually being sued by the Royal Bank of Canada, which is Canada's largest bank, for $400,000. Back in 2014, when he was a member of the Montreal Canadiens, this would have been his second NHL season, year two of his ELC at the time. Obviously, not making huge money like some NHL players. Rookie contracts at the time were he's still, good money compared to most. He took out a loan apparently in that year of just shy of $300,000. It was like $299,000 and change, and he's now in default. So he is being sued by the Royal Bank of Canada, trying to recoup their losses. Apparently, it's accruing at an interest rate of over 9%, which is why it's up to $400,000. So clearly, there must be fees for being in default, and of course, the interest is adding up. I don't know how long he's been in default. If they're going after him via a lawsuit now, I suspect that it's been a little while that this has been going on. Just wasn't known publicly, of course, because there would be no reason for it to be. So, so that's not good. Obviously, Alex Galchenyuk, there's been tons of rumors about it, really throughout majority of his career, unfortunately, about off-ice behavior. Lots of speculation, and I never really talked about it much here because I don't like to, unless it's confirmed, you don't really want to get into anything. But there was a lot of talk about, just different issues he was having, combination of the lifestyle he led, we'll say. And clearly this kind of makes a lot of it sound like it was likely true. Like at the time when he took out this loan, he was in the second year of his rookie contract. It was only guaranteed one more season, not even making $1 million per season, which I know for most of us is a ton of money. But to borrow $300,000 at that point, I don't know what kind of terms they gave him on this loan, but why would you need to be taking out that type of loan? This is not like it's a mortgage or something to buy a house. That would be completely different. At that point, of course, we'd be hearing about, a foreclosure and, a whole different set of circumstances. But for Galchenyuk to borrow that kind of money, I don't know what it was used for, obviously. But after the rookie contract, he signed a 2-year deal valuing a total of $5.6 million. And he followed that up with a 3-year deal, which I believe was settled through arbitration. The total amount he was paid over the 3 years was $14.7 million. So he's made over $20 million. And then, of course, he signed several 1-year deals since then. So, he's made, I can't remember what Cap Friendly said his total career earnings were estimated to be. I think it's around $25 million. And, to not be able to pay back this loan just seems kind of crazy. Obviously, it's a very much cash mismanagement type of situation. Obviously, it does look like things were, like I said, not going well financially. And if you can't manage your money, that's not good. I don't know if this is going to lead to a bankruptcy. I don't know what it's going to mean for him. But anyways, his legal troubles are not over. I would suspect that this is, again, not a good look for him. And whether or not his career is going to be over here, we don't know. There is some talk that because, of course, his family is partially Russian, that they do have some connections over in Russia. There was a possibility he may be going to play in the KHL, and that still might happen, I suppose. I believe the last I had seen was that there was talks with the KHL team possibly signing him, but it was indicated on his side of things that needed a little bit of time before he could do that, and I suspect with everything going down the way it did. I don't know if he was planning to go to rehab or what exactly was going to be going down. But, obviously there was, because he did admit in the letter that he issued as an apology that there were some, issues with alcohol and things like that. So I don't know exactly what everything that was planned to do, but he may resume his career over there in due time. But over in here in North America, things are getting a lot worse, certainly, before they get better. Like I said before, I hope he gets the help he needs. I hope he gets his life in order. And I hope he can get things back on track. He's still a fairly young man. Even if a lot of the money he's earned has been squandered away, then, if he can continue making decent money and keep things, straight and narrow in the rest of the way, he still might be able to, salvage hopefully a good rest of his life. So hopefully that can get sorted out, but not the kind of news we were hoping to see on Galchenyuk. We also have some other news today, including a couple of signings, and including another first-round pick from this year's draft. The Calgary Flames have signed their first-rounder, number 16 overall, Sam Honzek. He gets his ELC 3-year deal, of course, left winger out of Slovakia. Of course, the $950,000 average annual value with the $95,000 signing bonus per season. The rest paid as a salary. Of course, he played last year in the Western Hockey League for the Vancouver Giants. I'm not sure exactly where his intentions are to play this year. He could do another year in the Western League. He could head back to play in Europe, or he could possibly play in the American Hockey League as well. So I don't know what the Flames' plans are for him, but either way, he's signed officially a part of the Flames organization here. And the Colorado Avalanche have offered Ben Myers a 1-year contract extension as well. Ben Myers is now 24 years old. He was signed 2 years ago originally as an undrafted college free agent. He's appeared in 44 NHL games so far, putting up 5 goals. Myers gets a 1-year contract at $775,000. Now, we also had some rumors percolating today about Arizona Coyotes' top prospect, and arguably one of the, if not the top prospect before this year's draft, especially of non-NHL players, but are affiliated with NHL teams. You could say Logan Cooley would meet that criteria as being one of the top couple prospects outside the league. Earlier on, at the end of last season, when his season wrapped up, or the early part of this offseason, he was asked about his future, and at that point he had indicated he was absolutely returning to school, and the fact that the arena deal the Coyotes had fallen through and there was a lot of uncertainty over their future home and everything kind of clouded over the franchise certainly played a role, and he was likely going to stay in school. Well, it sounds like things have changed. Now, we know that the Coyotes have made more of an effort this offseason to bring in a few more quality NHL players to make the team a little bit more competitive. We know that they've obviously had concerns from existing players as well, including Clayton Keller being, front and center on that topic as well. With the not only the future home and the arena situation, but I think a lot of these guys are just getting tired of losing, and they're tired of not given the roster that's, anywhere near being able to compete for playoffs and just have a better, quality of play. And I think the Coyotes kind of had to take that into consideration, and they did this offseason trying to make things a little bit better. So instead of just selling off all the assets and kind of tanking, they're not taking that approach now. So getting Logan Cooley signed would be a huge step forward. Now, not to say that Logan Cooley is going to help them win a ton of extra games this year, but you add him, and then, of course, they could get their first full season of another top prospect in Dylan Gunter, who looks like he's got a bright future. Get those two in the lineup for, 70, 80 games this year, and that could be fun to watch for starters. And secondly, it could be a huge help. I mean, they could be two contenders for the Calder Trophy. They each have a ton of talent. It's hard to say what can happen, but indications are from Coyotes beat writer Craig Morgan, and Elliot Friedman has kind of chimed in on it as well, saying that they do expect Cooley to not return to school now and to sign his 3-year entry-level contract with the Coyotes and to play in the NHL next season. So that would be huge news for Arizona to get him in the lineup. Obviously, I know based on their previous arena engagement in Glendale, they might have struggled to sell tickets there, but the smaller arena they're playing at in Mullet Arena, they didn't do too badly. They didn't struggle to sell tickets and fill that much smaller arena. So at least it'll be a nice entertaining, addition for those fans that are buying those tickets and going through this year process with the Coyotes as they try to figure out their future home. So that could be huge news for Arizona. When it comes to the Boston Bruins, obviously today Patrice Bergeron met the media, answered questions, and of course formally, kind of talked through his retirement process here that was officially announced yesterday with the Boston Bruins. Based on comments from the Bruins brass, there's a no-brainer here that number 37 will definitely be heading to the rafters and be retired. It's just a matter of when they decide to do it. It could happen this year. Maybe they wait till next year. I don't know. They'll have to figure that out. But certainly something that's going to happen. But a lot of rumors are now persisting now that he's officially is retired. Is how do they move forward? Can they go into this season with Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha as their top two centers and actually expect to contend? I mean, they're definitely going to be a very different team this year than last. Look at all the additions they made at the deadline. None of them end up staying. They lose Bergeron, they lose Krejci. Like, they're a depleted team. Like, they still have a lot of good pieces. I've said this before. I'd be shocked if Boston suddenly is struggling and nowhere near the playoffs or anything of that nature. But are they going to be anything like the historic team last year? I can't see it. But it doesn't mean they can't make moves and make this team better. The offseason is far from over, and even throughout the season next year as well. So there's two articles I've seen today that were interesting, I found. One was through NBC Sports in Boston, covering the Bruins, and the other through the Boston Herald, both kind of looking at the same scenarios. How does the team move forward without Bergeron? Who could be trade targets to possibly be a top six center? You don't want to use the word replace Bergeron because you can't replace this guy. One of a kind, almost like I said before. When he retired, I would describe Patrice Bergeron as being as close as you can get to the perfect player. 200 feet, solid offensively, solid defensively, and just an all-around great leader, great person. Like, you can't get much better overall than what Patrice Bergeron gave the Bruins for 19 seasons. So they're not going to do that. But guys like Elias Lindholm in Calgary or Mark Scheifele in Winnipeg certainly seem like, intriguing options for them to replace some of the offense and to have this team have a better ability to score. Now, both these articles and both these writers agreed with what I said yesterday, saying that Lindholm is the better fit because he's more Bergeron-like. Now, he's not Patrice Bergeron, but out of you look around the NHL and you'd say, okay, is there a two-way centerman who's good at, not just good two-way, but close to an elite level two-way centerman available that could be available for trade? And there's not much out there, but he certainly fits the bill. Mark Scheifele, not known for being a defensive player. He can give you 30 to 40 goals, 70, 80 points, solid offensively, good in the power play. There's lots to like about Scheifele's game, but defense, not really his forte. And if anything, his coaches have been on him for lack of back check and lack of effort defensively as well. So I don't know that he's going to be anything like a replacement. That's why ideally you want Scheifele in the mix if you can, to have another centerman in your top six who can provide the different kind of play and not what he does. So obviously they're both intriguing options, but Lindholm the better fit if you're looking for a Bergeron type player. But the only thing is, if you look at each team and what kind of deals could be reached here. For example, the Bruins are tight on cap space like a lot of teams. They still have to sign Jeremy Swayman. They still have to sign Trent Frederick. Because there's been a lot of speculation they might feel like they need to break up their goaltending tandem and move one of Swayman or Allred because it's tough to afford both. And they do have a couple of young goalie prospects in the system that look decent that might be able to come up to be a backup. If they did that, would they consider trading a goalie to the Winnipeg Jets for Scheifele? Because the Winnipeg Jets, yes, they have Hellebuck for now, but he's already said he's not going to re-sign, and he's likely going to be traded either before the season or during the season. So they might be able to get their Hellebuck replacement by moving Scheifele. Yes, it hurts in the center spot, but this is going to be challenging, and I think both these teams to some degree could go through some growing pains to some extent, depending on what they decide to do here. But at the end of the day, I see that as maybe being a potential fit. Of course, like I said, with Lindholm, I know the Bruins have really been very, very, to say interested is an understatement, in Noah Hanifin for several years. And we know he's in Calgary. He's not staying. He's not re-signing as well. there could be a match there to make a bigger trade. But like I said before, the tricky part is who is going to go to Calgary to satisfy the Flames. Now, both these articles also address the fact that Jake DeBrusk may not have a long-term future with Boston beyond the 1 year he has left on his deal. They wonder if he could be part of a package in either of these scenarios as well. Like I said, you throw in guys like Derek Forbort, Matt Grzelcyk on the back end, and of course one of the goalies, and that kind of gives you the most likely players that could be involved to upgrade the center position. So at the end of the day, I think everybody agrees Lindholm's a better fit, but Scheifele might be the easier one to attain. Either way, no matter which one you pick, they're both going to need contract extensions, and they're both going to be looking for fairly significant raises off what they earn today. So let me know down in the comments who you feel is the better fit and what direction you think Boston should be going down. And lastly, I want to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's still a lot of rumors persisting about how they're going to handle their cap situation. Of course, we learned today, and there's already a video on the channel discussing it, about how Matt Murray is not going to be bought out. He is going to be on long-term injury reserve. The Maple Leafs announced today that he is out indefinitely and will start the season on long-term injury reserve. Some reporters have said he's expected to be on it for the entire season. So clearly a lot of people are confused by this, given the fact that he was actually healthy and available to the Leafs and on the bench as a backup goaltender during their last few playoff games. But as I mentioned before, when you're dealing with concussions, there is some symptoms that come and go. I don't know. I do think for everybody's sake involved here, just like I would have liked, but other teams that have gone through this road, I think they should be a little bit more clear to the public and their fan base on how this is working, like what is going on with the player. I understand personal health is private, but at the same time, when you're talking about these types of things that are not private, a lot of people, they don't have to go into great detail, but they could say that he's been deemed whatever due to concussions, he can't play, like just something. But it was a broad statement, right? And a lot of people are crying cap circumvention, but they did it over the Lightning and Kucherov. Heard it last year about Mark Stone of Vegas. And the rules are the rules. It's just that simple. But this just feels like more of a case like we saw a number of years ago with the Maple Leafs shipping Stefan Robidas, who it was speculated they just didn't want him to play for them anymore. So I don't know how much truth there was to that, but ultimately they're basically saying that Murray is being shipped off to Robidas Island and make him go away type of thing. But it is what it is. I don't know if there's anything more will come from that, but ultimately the rumors are now persisting even more so, and we should, if this is going to happen, it should happen in the next day, two at tops, because I think their window for the buyout will be closed, but about a TJ Brodie buyout. And here's the thing that I think might happen, and here's another reason why it makes sense. Because the way his contract is structured, they would get a full $5 million cap savings this year, and he would have a $2.5 million dead cap space for next year. So based on what is owing, so it'd be a $2.5 million cost for the buyout, and so they would pay that next year. So they'd save $5 million in salary cap space. They'd have some dead space next year, but who's to say they couldn't re-sign him? Brad Treliving did this before in Calgary with Michael Stone. He was a fan of Michael Stone. He had Michael Stone in Arizona, then ended up in Calgary, had him again. He kept signing him over and over again to these short one-year deals. We know Treliving loves Stone. It had nothing to do with that. He just didn't like him at that price. So he bought him out, and then within a couple of weeks, he re-signed him to a cheaper deal. Could they buy TJ Brodie out, save the $5 million salary cap space, and then re-sign him, say, for 1 year at 2.5? So the TJ Brodie would make his cap hit's $5 million. If he's going to get $2.5 million next year, he could get $2.5 million this year. Would they do that? I don't know. But actually, I believe his actual salary this year is higher, though, so it may not actually make him whole, so to speak. I don't know. But I do wonder if that's a possibility. If they talk to Brodie and say, here's what's up, we need to do this, can you re-sign for a lesser value? They need to save over $2 million in salary cap space, so they need to get a cap hit under 3. And like, if you look at the analytics, I know a lot of people are on Brodie for not having a good year and he needs to go. And to be honest, I think the fans that are doing that are a little bit uneducated or not looking at things thoroughly enough, because he actually had a really, really good year last year, arguably his best as a Leaf. Now, yes, did he not have a great Florida series? Sure, but you could say that about the bulk of the team. I don't think you can blame that loss on TJ Brodie. So at the end of the day here, you're not going to find a defenseman that you can bring in, I don't think, at $2 or $3 million to be better than Brodie. I just don't think it's going to happen. I still think he's a serviceable top 4 defenseman. And if they do a buyout and then re-sign him for less money, again, people are probably going to cry cap circumvention, but you can do that. And it's a way for them to save money without losing anybody. Now, will Brodie agree to that? Because he's going to probably, like I said, he might lose money depending on what the new contract ends up being. But I don't know. That's between them. Otherwise, you're looking at Connor Timmins or Sam Lafferty being trade targets. That's the most likely logical thing for me. Like I said before, a lot of people, like William Nylander's a hot topic right now too. They're not going to trade Nylander anytime soon. Like, I'm not saying, I think it makes a ton of sense that it could lead to that eventually, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that right now. They're not going to trade him over needing to free up a little bit of cap space. They're going to trade Nylander because they can't come to terms on a long-term deal, and they just figure they can find a way to move him and try to make their team better in other ways. That's why they're going to trade William Nylander if they do down the road. That's not going to happen this week. I'd be shocked if it did. Now, they could prove me wrong, but I doubt they will. So let me know your thoughts on this concept. Will TJ Brodie be bought out? Could he then re-sign for less money, essentially giving them the same team and solving their cap problem? I think it's a real possibility. Or are they going to trade Timmins, Lafferty, and lose a couple of bodies and be down? Let me know what you think. What makes more sense? What are they going to do? And we'll talk about it further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.